Good morning. No. Good morning, YouTube. I did not hear myself on the mic. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rise in body and or spirit for our opening hymn number, well, it's Comfort Me.
Comfort me, O my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, O my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, O my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, oh my soul. Sing for me, Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, O my soul.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm Reverend J. Wolin, the settled minister here at the Unitarian Universalists of Sarasota. I want to say good morning to everybody. Good morning. I want to especially especially want to welcome our visitors, both here as well as on live stream over YouTube. We want to invite all our visitors to participate in any of our events here. We welcome you to find out more about Unitarian Universalism, which you can do via a link. I feel like Vanna White. Via a link on the uusrq.org website. Or if you are here in person, you can sign up right outside the doors here at the welcome table. And if you do, we will send you our weekly newsletter that tells you about all the events that are going on here and then some, and as well Zoom links for our online programs as well. And as always, we invite you to coffee and conversation after the service. We look forward to getting to know each other. And today we have something really special for after service. We have a pancake breakfast put on by our children's religious education, so there will not be words for all ages today. And if today is also the first Sunday of the month, and the first Sunday of the month we always invite people, if they want, after the service, to join the UUs of Sarasota. All you have to do is come into my office if you're thinking of joining. Come into my office, which is in the building right across from here. And here's a special treat. If you want to become a member today, you get to go to the front of the line of the pancake breakfast. Just saying, the benefits of membership, I'll just say. As well, I want to remind you of a monthly potluck next Sunday, May 12th, Mother's Day, and as well on May 19th, in our ongoing effort to make people aware of different aspects of congregational life. We will be having a multimedia open house right after the service. When I say multimedia, I mean the audio-visual board behind there. And yes, there is a hope that you will find it fascinating and want to volunteer to help, but really just to make you aware of what goes on in creating a worship service. And with that, I welcome you to enjoy the choir.
perhaps this final act was meant to clinch a lifetime's argument that nothing comes from violence and nothing ever could. For all those born beneath an angry star, lest we forget how fragile we are.
Mañana ya la sangre no estará, al caer la lluvia se la llevará. Acero y piel, combinación tan cruel, pero algo en nuestras mentes quedará.
Un acto así termina con una vida y nada más. Nada se logra con violencia, ni se logra aquello que ha nacido en un mundo así. No olviden su fragilidad.
Her opening words are something I wrote entitled Remember. Come into this place amidst the hustle and the bustle, amidst the pain and the sorrow, amidst the fear and the suffering. Here we come together to be reminded of our best selves, to be fortified in our resolve for justice, to be assured of our ability to love ourselves and others, to be open to the revelation of the purpose of our lives. Let us look upon each other with love. Let us look upon the creation that surrounds us with awe and wonder, not to forget the struggles of our life and the world, but to remember what it is that we are fighting for. Please join me now as I light our chalice in affirming the sixth principle of Unitarian Universalism, which is printed in your order of service and on the screen above me. The goal of the world is peace, liberty, and justice for all. Our centering in words are from Hannah Szenes. Hannah Szenes was a Hungarian Jew who emigrated to British Palestine before Nazi Germany took over Hungary. And even though she was safe in Palestine, she joined British paratroopers to help Hungarian Jews escape from Europe. She was captured, tortured, and killed in the attempt. She wrote the following words in a prison cell before being executed. 1, 2, 3, 8 feet long. 2 strides across, the rest is dark. Life is a fleeting question mark. 1, 2, 3, maybe another week. On the next month may still find me here, but death, I feel, is near. I could have been 23 next July. I gambled on what mattered most. The dice was cast, and I lost. As we go into a time of contemplation, I ask you to contemplate what you are willing to gamble on despite the risks. I just want to say I love the sound of children talking in the silence, because it is a reminder of what we and who we are fighting for. So tomorrow is Yom HaShoah, International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It's a solemn day remembering World War II and the Nazi-controlled Germany's attempt to exterminate all the Jews, while most of the world, including the United States, did little to prevent it. It was not just the Holocaust itself we remember, but it was the culmination of 3,000 years of Jewish oppression reaching its apex. As told in the Hebrew Scriptures, in approximately 2500 BCE, Abraham the patriarchal leader of the Jewish people, hearing the word of God, comes to what is now Israel. In 1500 BC, the Jewish people were enslaved by the Egyptians, and their freedom story is retold in the book of Exodus. It was a long and arduous journey in the wilderness for 40 years until they found their way home. In 950 BCE, the first temple is built in Jerusalem during the era of the Jewish kings David and Solomon. And in 586 BCE, the first temple is destroyed as Israel is conquered by the Babylonians and all the Jewish people are exiled. And then in 516, the Persians defeat the Babylonians and free the Jews, and a second temple is built. And then in 329, the Greeks conquer Israel, and then in 164, the Jewish people revolt and overthrow the Greeks, a story commemorated in the Hanukkah celebration. In 63 BCE, Rome conquers Israel, and in 70 CE, the Jews revolt against Rome and lose, and the second temple is destroyed. And then in 135, the Jewish people revolt again against Rome in what is called the Bar Kokhba Rebellion, and the Jews are defeated and were exiled throughout the Middle East and beyond. Throughout subsequent history, Jewish people were violently expelled from most European and Asian countries, finally culminating in the Holocaust in the 20th century, when approximately 60% of European Jews were murdered. So why the Jews? Why did they and do they create such hatred? Well, you know, it's hard for us to imagine now, but back when Judaism came to be, it was a radical idea that God could not be seen, or that you could not even say the name of God. Right? This and the claim of a radical monotheism, the oneness of God, the oneness of the universe, challenged the validity of many other gods who people sacrificed to and made statues of. And it's really interesting to learn that this caused many of the ancient religions to believe that the Jewish people were actually atheists because you couldn't see their God. Now, Jews' refusal to acknowledge the Greek and Roman gods created ongoing conflict when those countries conquered Israel. They had integrity in their religion. And this is another key reason why often they are targeted, is that there are 613 laws in the Torah, the Jewish scriptures, required of Jews. This included dietary laws, which included a requirement to minimize pain to animals. And very interestingly, thinking about it, I think that has always been a thread in the culture of why we really weren't hunters often. And as well, you could not eat meat and dairy together. So no cheeseburgers. I don't know how people survived. I don't. This and as well as many other of the discipline laws in and of themselves set Jewish people apart from others. Like you can't go out to dinner with somebody else or go to their house and eat if they didn't, keep food a certain way. And so they ended up being segregated often. And without question, Christianity, more so than any other religion or government, laid the groundwork for much of the suffering of Jews across the millennium. I am often surprised how many Christians do not realize that Jesus was Jewish. In the Christian scriptures, it is clear early Christians struggled. They wanted to, but they struggled to convert Jews, and thus they proceeded to convert pagans. Many pagans had origin stories of their gods who became human, died, and were resurrected. So very similar to the Jesus story, and thus made it much easier to convert them. And as well, the Christians found it easier to convert pagans, since Christians did not require the dietary laws, and as well did not require circumcision. So I can easily imagine circumcision does not encourage adult male conversion. Just saying personally. I mean, everybody, pretty much every person often gets that now, but for most of history, only Jewish people were circumcised. And as well, Christianity, due to Jewish revolts against the Roman rule, Christianity demonized Judaism in an attempt to invalidate Judaism and validate themselves. Right? They wanted to be clear. We're not the ones rebelling against you. They're bad for doing that. We're good. And the Gospel of John, the last of the 4 Gospels, was written the latest Gospel written well after the death of Jesus, almost 100 years, was particularly focused on blaming Jewish people for the death of Jesus. And the idea was promoted for most of Christian history that Jews killed Jesus. It was not until the 1960s that a pope came out and said specifically, no, that is not true. And over the millennium, Christian church laws, which were civil laws through most of Europe, specifically discriminated against Jews. As an example, Jewish people were not allowed to be in certain professions or to own land, right? So they couldn't work the land. Often, the only way they were allowed to earn money was through finance, because Christians theoretically weren't allowed to do that, the arts, and they could be tax collectors, right? So imagine if your only interaction with a certain group of people was they're collecting your taxes and repossessing your property for the ruler of that particular land. And, you know, those limitations, they created a stereotype. And over time, this just became part of the thought process of much of European and then American culture. It seeped into the cultural writings of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales and Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, and as well, surprisingly for me, even Voltaire's writing. And in the 16th century, Luther had originally spoken favorably about Judaism because he was convinced that once they read his interpretation of the Bible, they would all convert to Christianity. Surprise, they did not. And he was shocked by that. Literally, this is true. And so he became virulently anti-Semitic after that, and in his later years wrote a book entitled On the Jews and Their Lies, which was truly a horror, promoting violence against Jews. And one last example that still deeply influences anti-Semitism, a book called The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The book concocts the story of a global conspiracy by Jews to take over the world. Some versions of these books existed by the end of the 18th century, and it was more prevalent starting in 19th century Russia, which led to violent persecution against Jews, which is what led my family to come here, much like the one that brought my great-grandfather here. Automotive industrialist Henry Ford printed 500,000 copies of this book and printed it as well in his newspaper. I want to say we still hear echoes of this today when people blame George Soros or the media or the bankers for their troubles. That is their dog whistle for the Jews. Now, my immediate family was very fortunate. My great-grandfather, who was an architect in Lithuania, gave up everything he had, moved to America, and over time, through working unskilled jobs, brought his entire family to America in the early 20th century. And if he had not done that, I would not exist today. As most of my family would have certainly perished in the Holocaust, as did many of my great-grandfather's extended family. It's hard to imagine walking away from a career, from moving halfway across the world to a place where you do not even speak the language and have to start from scratch. Perhaps the willingness to move comes from the rootlessness that is derivative from multiple millennium of being forced by violence to go from one place to another. And I think that is what was most shocking for German Jews during the Second World War. For they had settled in that part of the world longer than any other place in the world since being exiled by the Romans in the year 135. German Jews had assimilated, they'd given up many of those dietary laws and the things that made them different. And they'd been integrated into all levels of German society. They fought in World War I for Germany. They led universities, participated in government. After a long history of always being strangers in a strange land, they had finally felt accepted. And then the Holocaust. Now, I've talked with numerous Holocaust survivors in my lifetime. And the question, there aren't many left anymore, so I feel very fortunate to be able to have met many. And the question I always asked was why, especially when I was younger, I asked, why didn't they fight back? That always was a mysterious thing to me. And of course, there were many who said they did, and that's why they survived. But many of them responded that they believed this was just another in a long line of successions of countries that they were to be exiled from. They just could not envision the inhumanity that awaited them. Imagine accepting being exiled. Imagine the ingrained rootlessness that makes you accept that. All of this is why Jewish people feel such a strong dedication to a Jewish state of Israel. Because they feel that this is the only place they have the ability to defend themselves from a world that has always throughout 3,000 years of history tried to destroy them. And after the Holocaust, there was a vow to never be a victim again, to never walk into a gas chamber without a fight. And we see anti-Semitism rising up again in America. We saw it in Charlottesville in 2017 at the Unite the Right rally, where they were all chanting, "Jews will not replace us." We saw it in the 2017 Pittsburgh Tree of Life synagogue shootings for helping and supporting immigrants. We see it on the front paper of the Sarasota Herald Tribune today. Right? It was entitled "Anti-Semitism Rising Across the Country." And number one religious hate crime in America today is against Jewish people. We see it when there are multiple countries causing horrific violence, and focus seems to always only obsessively be on this small Jewish state. Or I have to turn on the TV or Twitter and see students chanting "from the river to the sea," which is a Palestinian statement that calls for the destruction of Israel and the death of Jews. Now, I've just given you a very brief overview of the longest hatred that has been inflicted on the Jewish people. It's easy to see how when times get hard, when there's a need to scapegoat someone, it is easy to look at people who are different than you, who dress differently, who have different customs. Think about how we see that experience in our culture, how we often demonize immigrants. We hear the demonization of immigrants from politicians, right? Let us be grateful for the freedoms that we have in this country, right? Let us be grateful. Let us not take them for granted. Let us have the moral vision to live out our values in the world for everyone, not just for us. You know, one other attribute of Judaism I really feel I need to bring up includes something that's in the book of Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, which is the concept of tithing. And so I encourage you to think about that as we take our offering today. Please be as generous as you can. For those online, your cell phone, there's a link in the YouTube video, or we have the QR code. Let this sacred time begin. Our next reading is Elie Weisel's excerpt from his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech. The world did know and remained silent, and that is why I swore never to be silent whenever, wherever human beings enduring suffering and humiliation. We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere. When human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy, national borders and sensitivities become irrelevant. Wherever men and women are persecuted because of their race, religion, political views, that place, at that moment, becomes the center of the universe.
When planning for this service, I knew we wanted to pick music related to Holocaust Remembrance Day. And this piece we found in our library is we thought, well, this is perfect, because what we're going to do is bring a little piece of just beauty in the middle of all this craziness. So this is actually, you'll see the poem will be put on the screen. It's really just a beautiful love song. It's taken from the Song of Songs. And it's just meant to paint a little picture of the beauty of the desert.
Thank you all so much. The philosopher George Santayana once warned, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And remembering is important, but I don't think remembering goes far enough. Just because one remembers the past does not lead to the conclusion that we will avoid the same outcome in the future. Having the knowledge of the effects of the pain and the suffering caused by the Holocaust is incumbent upon us to prevent future genocide. And not just genocide against Jews, but to prevent genocide against anyone. Now, after the Holocaust, there was a modern midrash. Midrash is a Jewish commentary on the Bible, a form of storytelling, where a rabbi imagines himself at the gate of Auschwitz with God, and he harangues God, asking how God could allow this to happen. How could God allow such destruction? And God turns to the rabbi. This is the most I've said God here in like 2 years. And God turns to the rabbi and says, how could you allow this to happen? We often wonder, how could countries stand by and let the Holocaust happen? But we know how, right? For we have stood by as it has happened to other countries since then, right? For we have stood by in Cambodia, in Bosnia, in Rwanda, in Myanmar, in Syria. Currently, excessive violence is still happening in the Sudan, the Congo, again Myanmar, China, in Ukraine, and now in Gaza. Now, some of these have been specifically called genocide and others not. Genocide has a very specific definition, is defined by the United Nations, and whatever they are, genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes. I am not an international lawyer, although I did stay at a Holiday Inn once, but the power of marketing, that just goes to show. But all I know, I don't know the technicalities of international United Nations. Well, I am sure I know we have some very people here who have worked in that field, and they, I'm sure, will let me know. But I do know that there is and continues to be massive death and destruction of civilians in this war in Gaza. And I don't know whether Gaza falls under whatever category, but I do know that what is going on there is horrific. The Gazan people are suffering a horrendous tragedy. And it's easy for me to be an armchair quarterback here in America, and I can go back 100 years and point to this and that, to this and that, right, and as well. But, each group, both the Israelis and Hamas, have had choices about how they could act, and they have choices going forward about how they could act differently. It is true that after October 7th, Israel was humiliated and fearful. And they sought revenge, and they sought, and they needed to create a future deterrent to make them feel safe again. But how much revenge is enough? How much suffering and death do Palestinians have to endure to make Israelis feel safe? The only way to safety for all in this region is to work for peace. Israel's continued theft of West Bank land over the past 20 years, and even accelerating during this current battle in the war, land that is meant to be part of a Palestinian state, will not lead to peace. Israel will never be safe until Palestinians are safe. And Palestinians will never be safe until Israelis are safe. Both sides need to look within, to be persuaded by an internal moral compass that will create connections amongst and between all parties, that will strengthen the entire region, that will bring peace and prosperity for all parties, that will bring self-determination for all people there. You know, prior to the destruction of the first temple in 586, when the Jews were first exiled from Jerusalem, they believed God actually resided in the temple. So what happens when the temple that your God resides in is destroyed? Well, you have to create a new vision for God. And God has to reside in your heart. Not outside of us, but inside of us. And when you are forced from location to location, and you don't have roots in a land, you learn to grow your roots internally. Right? Your roots are strengthened by the integrity of your actions. Your roots are nurtured by the truth of your speech. And your roots grow from living a life full of doing good deeds. And your roots spread through the putting forth a full and ethical effort into all of your actions. And by doing so, those roots define who you are. Now, Unitarian Universalism has deep roots, particularly in this country. But I imagine most of our members do not have deep roots in Unitarian Universalism. I'm going to just ask, how many of you here, raise your hand if you have parents or grandparents, multiple generations of Unitarian Universalists in your family? Anybody? I see 1, 2, 3, not many, a few, 4. Okay, and that's a beautiful thing. And I hope my children and grandchildren will add to my legacy. But right now it's about 50-50, hard to tell. But the truth is, most of us come from other religious backgrounds or no religious background. But I want to point out, just like the giant redwoods in California, some of which go to be 350 feet tall, the redwood's roots do not go deep into the ground, maybe only 5 or 6 feet. What holds the giant trees up is that the roots extend up to 100 feet wide from the trunk and intertwine with the roots of the other redwood trees. And sometimes the roots of the different redwoods actually fuse together. And on their own, they could never withstand the high winds or the raging floods that befall them. Only by connecting with others, only can they stay standing and continue to grow strong and tall. And I would say that's an apt metaphor for many things, including the Unitarian Universalists of Sarasota. Let us connect with each other and others and fuse ourselves and grow as human beings together. Let us remember what it is that we are hoping to do with our lives and with this community. Let us remember that it is not just about us, it is about all of us, and not just about the people who are here, but it is also about those who have not even had a chance yet to connect with us. And let our memories not be used just to create fear in our hearts for the future. For if we lead from a place of fear, we will always look at everyone and everything else, and every situation is dangerous. Let us instead lead from a place of hope. Let us not lead from a place of critique, but rather let us lead from a place of curiosity as to what we can learn and what may be possible. Let us not lead from a place of judgment, but rather let us lead from a place of appreciation for the gifts that we and others have. Let us not lead from a place of skepticism, but rather let us lead from a place of trust. This is the challenge in the Middle East, it is the challenge in this country, it is the challenge everywhere we go. That we need to trust each other. We need to have hope for a better future. We need to appreciate each other. To paraphrase Rabbi Hillel, he said, if we are not for ourselves, who will be? But if we are only for ourselves, what are we? So I ask you when you leave from here today, in addition to eating pancakes, to not just go back to your normal patterns and say, oh, what a nice service this was, or whatever else you might say about the service. I encourage you to get involved, to take action, actions that will lead to a more loving community, a more loving world, a world that is safe for all people to live without the fear of annihilation. It may be a long and arduous journey. You may feel sometimes like you are in the wilderness, but if you journey together, you will find your way home. Let us replace fear with love so that one day, just as in the words of the prophet Amos, justice shall roll down like water and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. This is the life we have been given. Let us go forth and do good with it. Let us work for peace. May it be so. Please rise in body and or spirit. Thank you. For number 146, soon the day will arrive. Our closing words are Belson Silence by Ilolo Lewis. Listen to the silence still and lift your head up high. Are you waiting for a question or an answer and a void to fill? Quicken then the pulse, breathe deeper still. Answer the silence to question why. Please join me now in extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for your presence here today. Thank you. Go forth, eat pancakes, do good.